Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the Matter Talkshow. It's your host again, Tosin, and Ada. I'm Tosin, and I'll let Ada introduce herself.
Yeah, and I'm Ada. Hi.
Woohoo. So we are back. We are back as promised. We are back to continue talking about the ever so topical mental health and African taboo. Here we are we have been exploring how we view mental health from the Nigerian's perspective on mental health, and possibly potentially Africa at large. And the last time we did have a psychologist, a PhD holder psychologist, I may add, in the house to talk to us about that, and we asked her some really extensive questions about mental health and what it is like for Nigerians and the struggle we have had in terms of dealing with it, the acceptance of it. And I think, Ada, if I remember correctly, we did say we will be back. So first of all, if you missed that, please do go to our different social media handles. You can see them underneath, including YouTube, and you'll be able to get that recording. Please don't forget to subscribe so that you will get notified every time we have a new episode out. So as I was saying, I think, Ada, we had said we will be back. We said we wanted to find out.
Yeah, we did say we'll be back because we wanted the feedback, right? We wanted to hear what people's opinions are. And I guess aside from even what we have gotten, we've had people talk to us personally. It's been interesting, hasn't it?
Yes.
We've gotten personal feedback as well. And it's been an interesting conversation. I mean, a series of conversations we've been having with quite a few people.
Yeah. So, mental health, as I said, it's increasingly popular here in the West. So just for viewers, Ada and I are based in London, but we're Nigerians with a heart for Nigeria, truly Nigerian at heart. And we have seen how the upsurge in attention being paid to mental health, in the West, and we hear about it also from what's going on in other Western countries. We know that in Nigeria, the light is being shone on it gradually, and we know there are challenges around it. So I think one of the things we did, we have now done, as Ada was mentioning, is we have gone to the streets.
We have.
You just might be one of the people we'll interview. So don't be surprised if you see yourself on TV on our screen. So we did go on the streets and to get people's views on what they think a mental health illness could possibly be. Just to hear from other people's views. And before we go to Lilian to find out what she heard, Ada, did you want to add anything just before we go?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I just wanted to say is we're not going to play the video through. If you want to watch the video through, you will be able to do so on our YouTube page. So please go there and watch it through. Just because we want to be able to comment on what people are saying, we're going to be kind of pausing to comment on things that we think we want to comment on, agree with or disagree with, or, but Lilian did a fantastic job. So let's go to Lilian. Just give me 1 second while I do that. So we're going to Lilian now. She was actually on the streets of Jos, interviewing people in Jos, Plateau State. And Plateau State is in Nigeria, for those who don't know. So this is Jos, Nigeria, with Lilian Yepwi, who is also one of our co-hosts on the matter.
All right, people, let's go to Jos.
It's good to see you once again. As always, I'm Lilian Yepui. So yeah, I'm on the streets of Jos, Plateau State, Nigeria. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So I'm going to be interviewing some people. And like always, we'll always want to pass the right message across. And today we'll be looking at mental issues. Yeah, mental issues. So we're going to try and have some people's reactions on what it means to be mentally ill or one having mental issues. So why not join me as we take this ride? So what if I tell you have mental issues?
Well, then you might have to prove it. And then maybe my follow-up question would be, why do you think so? And that's where I need a proof.
Everybody has issues. I would like to, based on married people, you see people working up and down. You don't know the challenges they face in their houses. But they cannot just go out and then like everybody has mental issues, one thing or the other. Even if you're not married, financial issues, everybody has mental issues.
I don't think so, because like, see me, I'm
Okay, so I just stopped quickly there. Well, what do you think so far? Everybody has mental issues. What do you think about this lady?
I think I liked what the young lady said just now, in terms of you don't know what people are going through. You see people step out of their houses, you know, and carry themselves the way they're dressed up and so on and so forth. But what's going on in the mind, you don't really know. And she said, she sort of was trying to highlight, look, mental issues could present itself in different ways. There's some that would be as a result of financial issues, could be marital issues and so on. But that pressure could be there and you won't know. But you know, she sort of was saying everybody does have one issue or the other.
Yeah, and I think if I remember clearly, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Dr. Wemi actually touched on that a little bit. You know, the fact that the fact that not everyone might have a mental illness, but everyone sort of has one mental issue or the other, which is what she said. Okay, shall we continue and listen to what this young man has to say? Okay.
I dress people like this. You can't see someone like me doing investment mental, right? But people who are mentally ill is might show from the way of conversation, their dressing, and all of that, their behaviors. Yes.
So, before we go to the lady, what do you think? I'm not sure where that is coming from, but sorry about that. For me, I just think, you know, he was like one of the things that stood out for me is the fact that he said, you can't see someone dressed like me who has mental issues. I mean, what do you think? For me, that is just like, that's the stereotype, isn't it? Someone who dresses nice cannot have mental health issues. Yeah, they can, you know, definitely from what Dr. Wemi said and from even my own experience. I know, like we were saying, like the young girl said, there are many people who look like everything is together, but actually are going through mental health illness even. You know, they might be well dressed, but be going through a mental health illness. You know, that's, what do you think? What would you say to that? Because I think a lot of people have that opinion. A person who is well dressed, who speaks properly, cannot have mental health illness. You know, what do you think?
Absolutely, I think I would agree with you. I mean, I'm of a different view from what the gentleman was saying in terms of you, because I'm well dressed, it means I don't have any, it means everything is okay. It's not written on people's faces. It's and that's the danger, I think, with mental health illnesses. If your leg is hurting, say there was an accident and the person starts to walk with a limp, you can immediately see there is a problem.
Yes.
If if one falls, a child falls and is bleeding, you can immediately see there's a problem. If one even has malaria, there's external symptoms, temperature, rigor, and all that stuff. And you can see, in fact, you can even see it on the face that the person is unwell.
Yeah.
That's the challenge with mental illness. It's not written anywhere.
No.
And so you can't find people walking, looking good, but inside, inside they're really struggling and crying for help and hoping somebody would hear them. So, I think that's something it's good to be aware of, and hopefully help us to dig into some more compassion, like Dr. Wemi said last time, in terms of being compassionate to each other, because we don't really know what people may be going through. It may still be at an issue stage, and it may, the mental situation may be at an issue stage, or it might be at an illness stage. Whatever the situation is, something, people, we all sort of need to have compassion with each other, towards each other, because it's not written. You can't tell.
Yeah, that's the truth. Okay, we'll just continue now.
There are some people that when you see them, you know that they are mad. Even they dress well, because we have 3 types of mental illness. We have psychosis, we have schizophrenia, neurosis. So there are psychosis when you dress well, when you start communicating with a person, that's why you know that's a mad person. But there are some illness that, according to Kalman's theory, it is not the society call you that you are mad, but it's what you are doing. It makes the society will call you that you are a mad person.
I think those who have mental issues are those who are mostly taken to the psychiatric hospital for proper examination.
Whoa, that is that is interesting. But I like what the other lady said, because she's actually helped us to bring more some more perspective, in terms of, yes, we know that particularly at the early stages, you often can't tell when someone is going through a situation, and I think that's what we're trying to say. However, as things get progressively worse, if the mental situation is not managed properly, there have been, things could deteriorate to a point where it becomes really external. For example, with depression. So, Ada and I are not experts, at all on this. We're just talking from our experiences and from what we've seen. And there have been things like depression. I've heard stories, people have shared with me how when they were going through that state, there was no motivation to get up in the morning, or even take a bath. Their whole surroundings was left unkempt, just because there was just no motivation to live. And there had been times when they had felt suicidal. They felt a complete loss of self-esteem, and motivation, and stuff like that came from a situation caused primarily by the relationship they were in, and how the person they were living in kept making them feel. So, yes, that sort of thing. And what that friend of mine did say was that whenever she was walking on the road, people did not know she was going through anything, because she would still cheerily say hello, and spare a minute to have a conversation. But in her mind, she was really losing it. But then again, there is also the situation where the person it's really deteriorated and they need serious help, where they need to be taken to like a psychiatrist ward or hospital to be looked after. But in all of these cases, whether it's the very beginning stages where things are happening around us, or the progression, or in specific like depression stages or psychosis, the key thing is there is an issue that needs to be dealt with. Would be good to get your view, Ada.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything you have said so far. I like the way she broke it down. She obviously seems to be an expert. It seems
Yeah.
to be her. I think later on she does say that that's her training, able to break it down to psychosis, and like we said before, there are mental illnesses that you totally would not even realize until the person actually opens their mouth and tells you that, I've been struggling with this. For some, unfortunately, we find out the hard way. You
Yeah.
just hear that the person has committed, suicide. I'm sure, that's just one extreme. Or you just find out, how did that happen? And you wouldn't even know. I remember the story you told the last time when we had Dr. Wemi. You talked about a talk that you listened to about a woman who did not realize that her husband had been suffering with depression till he actually committed suicide. That's how easy it is to miss it. So it kind of ties in what we said earlier. It doesn't show. There are some that are really, like what they said, mad people. I don't like that term. It's quite derogatory to me,
Yeah.
but I understand the context they're coming from. But people with mental illness, there are some that are really obvious, especially when it gets from, like Tosin said, we're not experts, but when it gets to the psychosis stage, like growing up in Nigeria, we've seen some of them walking on the streets, no clothes on, matted, dreads and all that. Those are the people we call mad people. And those are probably the people who the experts will say have gotten to the probably psychosis stage. So yeah, totally I'm agreeing with you here. We'll continue with listening to what this gentleman had to say. Really nice. The initial thing he says, though, I was like, no, not necessarily. He says those who have mental issues are those who are mostly taken to the psychiatric hospital. Not necessarily. The ones who tend to, especially back at home where we come from what I have seen, the ones who tend to be taken to psychiatric hospitals are those who are visibly, right now in a state where people can then see, because they've got to the final. I don't want to call it final. I don't know what it's called, but they've got to the stage where they're not behaving normally again, where they're taking off their clothes. At that stage, some of the people like that. But there are many, 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 many. Same thing we're saying. Mentally ill people who, if you even mention you are mentally ill, people will be like, I don't understand, because for them, mentally ill people are the people who are taken to a psychiatric ward. Not everyone, but the point I'm trying to make is that not everyone who is mentally ill has the obvious signs that would warrant anyone saying that they need to be taken to a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, and I think that is actually part of the challenge we face back home, because of that association with the psychiatric hospital, people don't want to associate themselves with anything that could potentially mean that they might require that sort of help.
Yeah.
Whereas that is actually really dangerous. If somebody if one has malaria, they would go to the hospital, they'll go to the doctor and get treated.
Yeah.
So illness of the mind, and I'm not even saying anything, not necessarily extreme, just illness of the mind. I'm struggling to cope with my daily activities.
Yeah.
Or I'm depressed, or I just I feel out of sync. And that having that being able to come forward and talk about that and therefore get the help that one needs is still something that is not quite I think quite appreciated in Nigeria. And I think we can tell from some of the things that people have kindly shared in sharing their views in this video, we can tell that, okay, some people still feel that actually, if you say you're mentally ill or you have mental issues, we're saying, do you need arrow? Because I think that's what the psychiatric hospital is called in Nigeria. So, yeah.
Yeah, should we just continue for
yeah,
that?
let's go on. Let's see
what he says.
See what really is their problem and what causes or what caused their problem. But if you are not, then means you have. If you are not, that means you are in sound health and you are okay upstairs and you do things normally.
Let's first of all understand what mentality entails. We are living beings, and that does not make us mental beings at all. The ability to choose between right and wrong, to act and to withhold, makes us mental beings. So once there's issues attached to you being a mental being, then you are equally mentally ill. So once you are mentally ill, that means you have mental issues. And this can be justified based on the actions or inactions that you exhibit.
So for people who find it difficult to share their problems, what advice would you have for them if they are finding it difficult to even believe in the first place that they have mental issues? What advice do you have for such people so that they will realize that they have an issue that needs to be solved and need to meet someone to help them out?
So the thing is, accepting you have the issue, you cannot be doing something on and then, like, you know, it's actually difficult. I cannot just walk up to you and tell you have problem, and then you're expected to believe everything I say. Like, you need to come to a point where you know you need help, and then think of how to get solution. At that point, we can start looking for how to get solution for you. Like, if it means looking for a counselor or something, but you know, it's quite difficult telling somebody he has issues, and then it's better if the person is aware of it and is trying to help himself. But you cannot actually force somebody who is not agreeing to find solution.
Okay. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think what she said is valid. And I think we can actually, I like to simplify things. Again, if we use the analogy of, let's say malaria, for example, if an individual, a grown-up, because I think with children it will be slightly different because adults are responsible for children, but if an adult, a grown-up, is feeling unwell, they need to voice and say, I'm not feeling well. And off the back of that, they go and seek help in the hospital. People don't usually come, you know, it's not usually the other adults in the vicinity that would come to that person to say, oh, you're not well, go to the hospital. You know, you usually have to own it and agree, yeah, you're right, you know, I'm really not feeling well. And I think it's really similar with the mental situation. If one is recognizing, having understood the signs and the symptoms, if one is beginning to see that, oh, actually, I don't think I am feeling okay in my mind. I am really struggling to cope with life. I am constantly feeling unmotivated and low and depressed and maybe even sometimes suicidal. I'm questioning, why should I even be here? You know, those kind of thoughts, or feeling completely unloved and isolated, or, you know, whatever the case may be. I think she's right in saying the individual sort of needs to get to that point where they recognize that this is something I can't do by myself. I can't sort this out. I've been going through this. I've been in this space for a bit, and I think I need help. I need to seek help. Especially because it's not written on the face. So the help could also be talking to a friend, right? And sort of saying to them, look, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think? I'm not saying the friend would be able to solve the problem, but they say problem shared is, you know, half solved or something like that. So the help could be that, or the help could be just outrightly going to the health services and saying to them, this is my situation, you know, how do you help me? Or can you help me? What do I need to do? But we all sort of have to own it as adults. We need to own, we are responsible for our health and well-being and how we show up in life. And so, yeah, as I said, I do agree with her view that the individual has to get to that point where they recognize that they need help and then seek that help.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you and with what she says. I think for me, the frustration I have is with the stigma that is still associated with this, so that when you're struggling mentally, it's almost a sign of weakness or a sign of not having a strong enough spiritual or prayer life to admit that you're struggling mentally. So even though it's the right thing to do, so many people would not talk about it, especially from the culture, from within our, our context and our culture, which we both know, we both understand. And even from my own personal experience, so I've also even been that critical person before. So I remember someone telling me, I didn't understand it at the time, and I mean, I'm saying this with regret, saying to me, oh, this was someone from the West, and she was like, oh, my mom suffers from depression. And my first question was, is she not a Christian? Like, how can she be suffering from depression? You just resist it, and that's because I think it's a lack of knowledge, I guess. I think we need to start talking more about it, having these conversations, normalizing it and making it okay, to not be okay, just making it okay to be, so that people are able to open up and share more. That is the truth. Like you said, it's not written on the head, and it's only you that can say when your stomach is hurting. We can't say, but it's hard again. We know people would struggle with this. People would struggle with being able to open up, because the first thing they think about is, I'm going to think I'm a crazy person now. I'm going straight to, so yeah, I think there's still a lot to do to get people to that point where they're able to actually admit that they're struggling. I mean, that would, come on.
Yeah, you make a good point on that, because particularly from the Christian point of view now, you know how these things can be. In Christendom, in a place like Nigeria, you say you are feeling that way or you're struggling, you'll be hit with scripture. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And you immediately feel judged in addition. But I think, and these are my thoughts, I think that that had been the way things had been dealt with, maybe even in the West, where things like depression, they didn't pay as much attention to it in the past. I think the reason that it's become so topical in more recent times is because people have now come to realize that ignoring it it has not been effective.
No.
There have been lots of suicides as a result. The story you mentioned that I shared with you. The ladies, even after the guy died, her husband died, killed himself, and they discovered he'd killed himself. The only way she found out was because he left a note saying, "This is why I took my life." That was how she found out. So the reality is, there has been a rise in this kind of suicides and people not being able to bring themselves and just being in a place just low and lots of cases of different categories of mental illnesses. And so that's why it's become so much more topical. And you're absolutely right. We have to help ourselves. You know, we have to talk more. We have to be more open and upfront about these things, so that people feel more comfortable to come forward. Take a formal organization, corporate organizations in Nigeria. You know, imagine someone going an employee saying they're struggling mentally. I don't know if they will be supported. You know, whereas that is the asset. You know, that's the human resource, the human capital of the organization. But because of the way it's currently viewed, very likely they will be kicked out.
Yeah.
Because they're not bringing it. Let's not even talk about the fact that sometimes mental illness is actually caused by the practices and the pressure from the organization themselves, who obviously are trying to make money, you know, but I'm just painting a picture here. So you're right. The reality back, you know, in Nigeria is that people struggle to come out. They're afraid to come out and talk about it because of the stigma.
Yeah.
We've heard a couple of people talk, and all they're thinking about is, oh, maybe the person's mentally deranged, which is so derogatory. And again, prevents people from wanting to come and talk about those things. And so you're right that keep talking about it. I think I shared with you about how a CEO of one of the top, you know, organizations in the UK came out and shared his own experience with mental health and how he struggled. And that was that was a deal. It caused a real shift. It was a game changer. And in his organization, people now talk freely about it, and they are supported, you know. And guess what? People then become more productive, and then the organization is more profitable, you know. So, but I think let's, so that I don't lose the point I'm trying to make here. This is someone really senior coming out to say, I struggled. That was so powerful. Because you then see that if someone at the top could struggle and come out and say it, okay, it's okay. It's okay. So I can come out and talk about my struggle and then get help. He said he struggled and he got help. Okay. So, you know, back to the conversation. We do need to keep talking about it, sharing our stories and holding each other's hands and walking this journey of life together and saying, yes, you're struggling. I'm here for you. Let's get help, or whatever it is, you know.
So, I like that story you gave about someone in such a place of authority being vulnerable like that. And maybe that needs to happen in our culture, in our context, in Nigeria and Africa, where, you know, someone who everybody's like, wow, about, you know, is vulnerable and say, hey, I struggle too. Then maybe that will break the ice and get people talking. So let's just go back to this and see how much more of this we can actually talk about.
Depression, whatever form it comes, bipolar, whatever package it comes, okay? Once it is out of the normal, right? And then now, sometimes some of these things, you are suffering from them, you are the only one who knows. Until you exhume or exhibit the actions that comes from suffering from this. That is when people outside will now tag you as being a mentally deranged person, or tag you as somebody who has a mental issues. So your handling of these things, yes, there are some people who are already used to some of these mental issues. And when it comes, they restrain from the society. And now that's the danger of a mental issue like that of depression. Once you have depression and you refrain, you see, the way God has designed man is a problem caused by man cannot be solved by man. It takes a more superior being, that is God himself, to help you out. So, and this help comes in different packages. They come through meeting professionals in this field. They come through meeting people who have been there and done that, who will share their experience and how they overcame. They come through meeting with with people that God have put in place to be source of help to you.
That person need to see him for a counseling. Because I'm just telling you because it's my field. So that person need to see him for a counseling. Because there are even sometimes you want to go and read in university or polytechnic. Sometimes if you don't know the course that you want to go, maybe your father is an expert, he can counsel you.
So, sir.
Yeah. With regards to what the previous person said, Steve, the guy, I think one thing that stood out for me was the fact that he said, you need a bigger power, bigger than yourself. I was holding my breath. Is he going to, but I liked what he said, that this help, although comes from God, comes in different packages. And part of which is go and seek help from a professional. Doesn't make it less God helping you when you do that. Just like you talked about when you're sick. When you are ill, when you have an illness, when you have malaria, you go to see the doctor or pharmacist or whatever, you get the medication. Doesn't mean that you're belittling God's part. That it's still God helping you. And I think it's important to talk about it because I know we're quite religious. That's a big part of who we are. In a lot of ways, it's a good thing, but sometimes it can almost be a negative thing because it's almost like either or. If you're going to see someone to get mental help, then you're not trusting God. Which, so I just liked the way he was like, so you need a bigger power, but it comes in different packages. It's just so true. Like God put these things in place so we can get the help we need.
Yes. Yeah. I totally agree with that. I agree with that viewpoint. I think earlier I had mentioned how if people confided in someone, for example, one of its challenges is they get hit by, particularly in the religious sector, they get hit by someone just quotes scripture back at them, the joy of the Lord is your strength, without really listening to hear what the pain is, and also being mindful that we're in different places in our walk with God, in our journey, so sometimes that's not enough for that person, which is probably why they're going through that, and that might work for someone, but it doesn't work for everybody, and for that person it's not working for. They need more help, and it is still God who gave mankind the wisdom for us to be able to understand how to tackle these issues. Prior to today, it was tackled very differently. I read a book, and I won't even go into the detail around that one, but it was sometime in the 70s, and they were talking about how to deal with mental illness. The severe mental illness was not something they knew how to do. They were just exploring different drugs. Then they would just drug them, and it was not effective at all. But over time, mankind has been able to find more effective ways of dealing with this problem, But the earlier we deal with any issue, the better, the more likely we'll be able to catch it and nip it in the bud, It's when things are left for a long time, it then progresses and becomes something that we then start to struggle to manage. So, back to our point, completely agree that God has given us the wisdom to deal, and so we can deal with this issue in different ways.
Yeah, totally. Let's just continue and see.
Do you think pastors are in the right position to actually help people that have mental issues?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it depends on the some pastors that I used to see, they claim to heal people with mental issues. But to me, it has never been proof Do you understand? In the sense that I have never seen a mentally deranged man personally. And then after some time, maybe after the man visiting a pastor, do you understand? And he gets healed. I've not seen, so I cannot really say.
I will not say they should go to a man of God. Everybody has his field of calling. A man of God should be consulted for spiritual issues. Yes. While in cases like this, you should meet a professional. At least he has gone through the process and will be able to pull you out. But a man of God should be consulted for spiritual issues and godly issues.
Yeah, there's some issues that you really need a consultant, someone that you can share your emotions and your feelings with, that can also advise you and talk to you pertaining the situation you're passing through at the moment. And there's some issues that you really need a spiritual hands, like a man of God, a mom, or whatever your religion you are. There's some situation that you really need those people. You know, you can see so many people on the streets. They might be moving, but their mind is not where the mind is not with them. They're thinking so many things, and so such people like that, if you can call them and talk to them, you know that problem is you notice that most of them have so many pressing issues that they don't even have someone to even share with. Okay, so I think there are some issues that you need to meet a consultant, a professional in that skills that can talk to you, and there's some issues that you really need a spiritual hands to advise and pray for you. It's not every problem that God needs to that you need to go to God. There's some problem that we human beings are supposed to settle it by ourselves.
On that point, my position is quite simple. Who is a pastor? Okay, this is a shepherd that God has put over you. Now, but notwithstanding, they were first of all humans before they became pastors. Okay, when you yourself know that there are some characters that your pastor exhibits, and you feel you are not even safe with him, and then you go to meet him for counseling concerning issues like this, that means you are neck deep into mental issues. Okay, but under normal circumstances, I understand pastors. I am a deacon, and as part of my training before my ordination, I did some programs in the Bible College, in the School of Disciples, and it entails mentorship and counseling. Yes. So these are part of the studies. So they are learned in this aspect, but notwithstanding, no matter their level of knowledge, they cannot be more learned than the professional who chose this as a line of practice. Okay, so there are psychologists. Yes. So in my response to that question is in two ways. Yes, you can meet your pastor if you trust him spiritually as an oracle of God to deliver you from that predicament. If you trust him emotionally as a sound pastor who is learned in the art of counseling to advise you and guide you through the process out of that problem, you can meet your pastor. Okay, then you can also meet a professional in that field, a counselor, a consultant who can consult you, give you medications, take you through therapy out of that problem. So I think what I would advise is see the two of them as God sent. Forget pastor, forget doctor, forget professional, because they are on a mission to deliver you or to help you out of a problem.
Counseling is
okay. So, do we talk to our pastors? Do we not? It's a very tricky one, isn't it? I remember asking Dr. Wemi about it, and she was treading very carefully with that one. It's interesting to hear people's opinions. It's very interesting to hear what different people are saying. My own layman opinion would be the pastors have their role, and it's an amazing and very important role. Your pastor, your religious leader has their role, and we're not trying to say that role is not valid. It's very valid. It's very important. But with regards to a case which is clearly a mental health issue, I'm not saying, my opinion, and I again make a disclaimer, I'm not professionally trained. This is my own personal opinion as a lay person. My own opinion would be that, yeah, okay, you can talk like what Steve said. You can talk to your pastor. For me, I think from a point of view of just, this is what I'm going through, I think it is then the pastor's responsibility. Again, it has to be a pastor you trust. It is then the pastor's responsibility to point the person to the right direction, because, for example, it's like saying, oh, don't go to your, I'm not going to say don't go to your pastor if you're ill, if you have, if you're told you had cancer or malaria, or you have appendicitis. I won't say don't go to your pastor. However, I think that pastor will be very unwise if they're like, right, I prayed for you, don't go to the hospital. Don't go to any, I would say, even if you want to do that, to me, unless that pastor is a trained psychologist or a trained practitioner in mental health, that pastor, if you have to talk to a pastor or your religious leader or something like that, should only be there as someone who would then pinpoint you, is that the word, to who would then just point you towards the right direction. And for me, I would say this is more on the pastors than even the people, because we come from a culture where with everything, you go to your religious leaders, you go pray for me, yes. But I think it would be so wrong of the pastors not to also then say, okay, thanks, we will pray, but go and see. So, because they are not, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of pastors are not trained to handle a lot of mental health problems. I'm not talking of problems that are not mental health, because remember, what we're talking about today is mental health illness. Sorry, not just problems, mental health illness. So everything I'm talking about is in the context of mental health illness. I'm not saying don't talk to your pastor, or I'm not saying pastors don't counsel people, but I'm just saying when it is clear, and I think that's something for me, I would say train pastors to realize where this is not, I can't handle this, you need to talk to someone who is actually trained in this. I don't know. I don't know if it's a humility. It's just being real and accepting the fact that this is not my training. I wasn't trained for this. So moving forward, you will need to talk to a therapist or someone who has been trained, So it's tricky. It's really tricky. But what do you think, Tosin?
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Oh, my life.
Would you
Yeah.
talk to your pastor if you had if we're going through mental illness?
No, because me here living where I live, no, I won't. And I have been in the situation where I felt like, I don't know if I was going to, I felt like I needed therapy, because of something I was going through. I didn't. I prayed. I spoke to people who were close to me, close to my heart, my close friends, my prayer partners. However, I got therapy. I went and saw a therapist. I didn't talk to my pastor. To answer your question, I spoke to a therapist.
Okay. And I think it's same with me. I wouldn't talk to my pastor, whether in Nigeria or here, if I was going through a mental health situation. I would talk to somebody who is trained to understand the framework. So, when dealing with mental illness, there is a certain approach, and people are trained in how to handle this sort of things. Sometimes they need to go back with you into your past or to get to the bottom of what the issue is. And that needs to be managed delicately and carefully. Otherwise, it could, if not properly managed, it can actually trigger something else that leaves the person worse than they are. It's like somebody is suffering from appendicitis, and they go to a carpenter or for treatment. So, rather than going to a doctor. So it's, I think the more we realize that mental illness, when one is, well, in whatever shape or form it is, whether it's depression or the borderline or whatever, the more we realize that it's actually an illness, and there are people who are trained on how to treat that illness, I think the more people would start to follow the approach of seeking professional, the right kind of help.
Yeah.
I think I agree. Pastors, imams, the different religious leaders, they have their role.
Yeah.
And they, which they should play, which they should definitely play. I think if they want to become counselors, if they want to be able to support people in that journey, I think they should get the training so that they are able to provide that support so that people actually recover rather than get worse.
Yeah.
That would be my view. And once my pastor says to me, oh, I'm trained and I can see the credentials that support it, then I could go and talk to my pastor.
Yeah.
And the other thing I also wanted to quickly mention was, I think you're right. I think the pastors, religious leaders generally do have a responsibility by virtue of their roles to make sure that people go for the right kind of help.
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of churches have something where they call counseling unit or counseling team or whatever. I don't know what that counseling is. When I was younger, it used to be counseling in terms of, like getting to know more about God, right?
Yeah.
But I think it progressed. There's marriage counseling, there's different things. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have marriage counseling, but I will always go. I have learned that people have gone and trained on how to do stuff. And I would rather go to people who have actually trained and I can see evidence of the training. In addition to that, when people, things that go on in people's minds, things that cause mental illnesses, a lot of it should be handled very confidentially. And I would like to know that whoever I'm offloading to is guided by a set of rules that helps them to maintain that confidentiality. That's another reason why I will not speak to my pastor or just any random person. I would like to know that I can trust that person. And so, like in the West, for example, with the counselors and psychologists and people that work in that area, there is a code. And they have to live up to that code. And you sign a confidentiality agreement before you start that. So that's something that it would be great to see start to happen in Nigeria. I know there are trained counselors in Nigeria, trained to help with mental illnesses. And I would rather see those ones. And I'm sure there would be, there'll be a code that they are subscribing to. So, it'll be good for our churches to pick up on that. And like you said, Ada, to guide people who need help to seek that kind of help rather than just, going to someone who's not trained.
Yeah. Okay. I like that we've been able to get all of this out of the conversations that we've been listening to. Well done, Lilian. Let's see how much more we can get through. Okay. Just bear with me.
It's like a profession. It's a profession. And there are some people they're born natural. When they talk, you know that. Even they did not go to school, you know that.
There's something really interesting you said, that we should seek for advice. But then, we have this normal tradition when you want to say something or share an issue with someone, say, beg, are you the only one going through this kind of thing? Just go, So people that react in such ways, what advice would you have for them? Because when one is actually trying to open up and you just throw his issue to the wind, it makes them close up more. So please, what advice do you have to people that react such ways?
Okay, that is what the white man tag as stigmatization. And stigmatization kills faster than even the disease itself. It is a terrible thing. And I think God forbids it. For the fact that you are okay today, you don't know what the next minute will bring. So if you are in such a position, I think my advice to you is to please empathize with these people. First of all, think if it were me, because it could have been you. What makes you think you are better than them? So if you reason with them from that perspective, if I were in their shoes, you will, instead of rubbishing their feeling, instead of pushing them deeper into depression, all you'll be considering is, how can I be of service? How can I be of help? So my advice to such a people is desist from it and then empathize with these people.
That is why, in social work, the principle of social work is manner of approach. So all human beings are equal. If you are discrimination, when you have problem and you want to go and help him, if you are discrimination with him, you cannot tell his own problem unless you relate with him just like a friend. You share to his own problem. So don't be discriminated to them. They are human beings like us.
There's no way you can compete someone who is mentally ill and someone who is normal. I know those professionals in our skills, they know how they can also convince them and talk to them in a polite way or in the way they are trained to take those people to the home that they can be attend to. Yes.
Some of these things, we all have mental issues. They come in different forms, they come in different packaging. All that matters is your handling, right? But you must first of all learn not to lie to yourself. When you notice that you don't do the normal things, you don't like being among normal people, first of all, acknowledge with yourself that you have a problem. And then the second thing is what? Talk to somebody. Seek for help. And if the help comes, whatever process that is involved, and I will advise, ask for testimonies from such a process. If it is through a medical process, if it is through pastoral process or counseling, go all the way. Conform with whatever they have asked you, because if you have the solution at first, you wouldn't have gone to seek for help. So if it is therapy, through medication, in whatever form, go with it. Just release yourself. And above all, like I started, a problem caused by man cannot be solved by man. It takes a supernatural being. So cry to God for help, and I'm sure you'll be fine.
Okay, so from all you have heard so far, there are people that believe that people have mental issues, and there are those that don't believe that the everyday man has mental issues, even though at the end of the conversation, they agree that people have issues that they need to handle. So be it a professional or a pastor, I think you need to prioritize how you need to face your challenges. So the professional has a role to play, and also the pastor. So, Ada Anthony.
And thanks. I think we'll just stop it there. Everyone has a part to play, Lilian said. Yeah, we are grateful for that, what she did, being able to talk to all those people and getting the opinions of everyone. But I think it's so essential for me anyways, that people understand that the role of the pastor or your religious leader is totally different from that of a therapist or someone who is trained to help, trained in mental health. For me, anyways, I'd say, except like what we said, that pastor has also been trained to be able to handle that. I would say they have two different roles. I think that was kind of what Lilian was concluding. She concluded by saying everyone has their different roles. So what do you say, Tosin?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody has their different roles. And so we should, when we have these challenges, we should go to the right people to get the help. But I quite like what the one of the gentlemen was saying, and I think we'd mentioned it at the beginning about empathy, compassion, for each other. I think that is so key. Looking out for each other. Be your brother's keeper in simple terms. And of course, pray to, whoever you believe in. I'm a Christian. I would pray to God, and trust him for help. So I think that brings us to the end of today's show. We do hope you have found it helpful. We intend to bring a specialist, an expert in these matters, to talk to us some more. So, we would welcome, if there's any particular area of mental health you are looking for insight into, or if you have questions on any of the things we've talked about, you can see we have our contact scrolling across the screen. So please do pop your questions, your thoughts, your requests across to us. And we will try our best to address these things. But for today, from Ada and myself, we want to say thank you for being very much part of this show. And see you next time.
See you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.